Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Crimson and in this video we are going to be doing yet another one of my Warhammer 40k army showcases, and this time it is my Grey Knights army. Now if you have been following my channel for a while, you have probably seen that I already made a series about my Grey Knights army showing off all the models. However, that was a completely different format, which I find to be very flawed in hindsight. So since I'm now doing all of my armies in this format, I thought that I would redo the Grey Knights. So before we get started, let's start off with just who exactly are the Grey Knights. So the Grey Knights are an extremely elite and extremely secretive group or chapter of Space Marines. However, they do not use the same command structure as Space Marines or fall into any of their guidelines in terms of combat. So every Grey Knight is an extremely potent psyker. Knight is an extremely potent and powerful psyker. Now, I mentioned that they do not follow the same command structure as a standard Space Marine chapter. That is because they do not have a Primarch or a Chapter Master. Instead, they have multiple Grand Masters, and then they are led by the Supreme Grand Master, who we will get to shortly. Also, they have a scorched earth policy, which means that if, for example, if demons were to invade a world and the Imperial Guard stationed on that planet were fighting the demons, and then the Grey Knights show up, they will not only kill all the demons, they will also kill all of the Guard and all the civilians to make sure that the taint of the warp does not spread. The very existence of the Grey Knights is a tightly kept secret within the Imperium. So yeah, with that little synopsis out of the way, let us just dive right into my army. Okay, so starting off, we have our Purifiers. So the Purifiers are very zealous members of the Grey Knights and are often the vanguard in any given battle, or the tip of the spear. Like a lot of Grey Knights, they usually teleport directly into battle from the warp itself. I should also just take this time to mention that the Grey Knights are primarily a melee-based army. While they do have weapons like storm bolters and heavy flamers, heavy sight cannons, stuff like that, for the most part, these guys are melee-based. I'll give you an example of this knight here. If it can focus, he just has a Nemesis Dread Sword, which is perfect for slaying demons. By the way, I apologize for my hands being covered in paint. I was painting miniatures right before I started recording this, and I cannot get it to come off. I've washed my hands like 3 times. Anyway, as for who is leading this group, we have Castellan Crow and a Brotherhood Ancient. So, Castellan Crow is actually the champion of the Purifiers of the Grey Knights, so technically he would actually be leading these guys. But what he's most well known for is his sword. He has this demonic sword from the warp that constantly whispers and tries to corrupt those who wield it, so he keeps it on his person at all times, because he's the only one who has the willpower strong enough to resist the urges and temptations given to him by the sword, which is just such a good bit of lore. Also, I think his model is probably one of my favorites, if not my favorite, in the entire army. It actually might be tied with another model, but we will get to them later. Anyway, next up we have our Brotherhood Ancient. So before we actually discuss the Brotherhood Ancient himself, one thing about the Grey Knights is they record their deeds and victories in battle on banners, and then carry these banners into the next battle. which is what the Brotherhood Ancients do, and in this case you can see that he is holding his banner here. As well as the banner, they also are equipped with Terminator armor and often serve in Terminator squads to boost the morale of said squad. But yeah, pretty cool. This is the banner that he is carrying. So yeah, let's move on to our next group, which is the Purgation Squad. So Purgation Squad members are heavy weapons experts. While they still use melee weapons like the rest of the Grey Knights, they are more fond of heavy two-handed weaponry, like the heavy flamer, the melter, the heavy scythe cannon, and so on. Here is an example of one Grey Knight that I have here holding a massive weapon. But also they still have swords too, so here is another knight who is dual wielding swords. So quite cool. Just goes to show that there is some variety in the Purgation Squad. And leading them, we have another Brotherhood Ancient. I just put him here because I didn't know where else to put him. As well as Grand Master Voldus. So Voldus is one of the Grand Masters of the Grey Knights that I mentioned in the beginning. He is the Master Librarian of the Grey Knights and is an incredibly powerful psyker. He also has this famous Warhammer, which is capable of purifying demonic entities. So I imagine it is extremely good for fighting demons. Also, his model is really cool. I really like the armor. Usually I try to give all of my units helmets when possible, but I thought for Voldus I would just use his head. Next up, we have the Strike Squad. So the Strike Squad Grey Knights are essentially your standard infantry. They are good at everything but great at nothing. They're kind of like the jack of all trades. They wield a variety of different weapons, from the heavy weapons that we saw in the Purgation to the more melee focused stuff in the Purifiers. An example, I'll show you this guy who has one of the spears as opposed to a sword. Still the same kind of blade though, even though I have it painted slightly differently. But yeah, just so he has a little bit more range than the knight that we previously looked at. But leading my Strike Squad, I have Kaldor Drago. So Kaldor Drago is the supreme Grand Master of the Grey Knights. So he is above the rest of the Grand Masters in the Order. So he is technically the closest thing the Grey Knights have to a Chapter Master. And as you can imagine, he is an extremely skilled fighter, an extremely potent and powerful psyker. And yeah, and his model is just beautiful. I mean, look at this. This is probably tied with Castellan Crowe for my favorite model. Between his armor, the banner with the Grey Knight logo on it, his shield, just everything is perfect, and I think I did a pretty good job painting this guy as well. But yeah, that's Kaldor Drago and the Strike Squad. Let's move on. So next we have the Grey Knight Interceptors. So what makes these guys stand out from the rest is they all carry personal teleportation devices. That is what you see on their backs here, if I can get it to focus. That these little prongs coming out of their back is what allows them to teleport. So it makes them able to dash around the map of the battlefield very, very quickly. What is nice about them is that there isn't anything that is restricting any other unit from becoming a interceptor. So if you were to put this back piece on any other Grey Knight, they could serve as an interceptor too. Personally, I have all of these back pieces magnetized, so I'm actually able to kind of change and swap interceptors as needed, which is really nice. And leading my interceptors, we have Captain Stern. Now, Captain Stern, I believe previously was a brother captain before he got his promotion, and is just a really good leader. There isn't any super in-depth lore about him, or at least not that I can find. But he is a extremely good fighter and an extremely good psyker, like all of the Grey Knights. One thing though is his model, as good as it looks, is one of the metal models, so it's quite old. Even just holding it now, it is actually very heavy. But you can see him here with his Stormbolter on one hand and his sword in the other. Really cool unit. And yeah, let us move on to our Terminators. So the Grey Knight Terminators function in the same role as the Space Marine Terminators. They have the most powerful armor, which makes them even more deadly on the battlefield because they're able to soak up so much damage. However, Terminators in the Grey Knights usually stick to melee weapons. However, they do use every kind of melee weapon available to them, from swords to spears, halberds. This guy in front here has a hammer. If I can get it to focus, there we go. But yeah, they all also have Stormbolters, but they don't have like heavy-duty firearms on their own. And leading these guys is a Terminator Captain, which I kit bashed into being a Grey Knights Terminator Captain. So I think it turned out pretty well. I don't think you would really be able to tell the difference if you didn't know it was a kit bash. But yeah, I just thought it was fitting to put the Terminator Captain in front of the Terminators. So you can see the little shield that he has in between his shoulder and his torso, and his Warhammer that he's wielding. Yeah, anyway, let's move on to our Paladins. So the Grey Knight Paladins are the most elite units in the entire Grey Knight Order. They are the best warriors and the best psychers, so much so that Paladins are the personal escort of Grandmasters. And the telltale sign of a Paladin, because Paladins wear Terminator armor, so the way that you can tell them apart is that Paladins have a holy book attached to the armor, often with 2 or 1 daggers going through it. Very similar to the Grey Knight logo. So this Paladin I have here is holding a halberd, and yeah, really cool. I love these guys. I don't have as many of them as I would like to have, but at the same time, for how powerful these guys are in an actual game of Warhammer, I have more than enough. Now, onto the leaders. So, in front of my Paladins, I have 3 different leader units. So the first one is this guy. So this guy is a brother captain. A brother captain in the Grey Knights is someone who shows extreme ferocity and skill on the battlefield. Very similar to Captain Stern. However, this guy is not a named character. This is just a standard brother captain. But yeah, often they wear Terminator armor, but like I said, they are among some of the strongest and most devout members of the Grey Knights. So this guy is a standard Space Marine librarian, which I just painted and kit bashed up to look like a Grey Knight. So that's why he looks so similar to a Space Marine librarian, because basically he is one. But this guy, though, is a Grey Knight librarian. If I can get the camera to focus, that is. There we go. So the librarian is the most powerful psyker in the Grey Knights chapter, or at least in this group of Grey Knights. As you can see, he also has a book on the top of his armor. However, unlike the Paladins, his is massive, whereas the Paladins maybe only have a few pages. This guy has a massive tome on his armor to the point that it has to be chained. He also has the same staff as the other librarian did, as well as a bolt pistol. So very cool model. I do really like a lot of the Grey Knight leader models. I think they are excellent, and this guy is no exception. Anyway, let us continue. I forgot to mention it, but here is the standard bearer or Grey Knight Ancient, but for the Paladins. So as you can see, he has the book on his back and the banner depicting a victory in battle, which is quite cool. Anyway, now let's actually move on to our next group. So the next two groups are going to be very small. They only have 3 units each, but I just thought that they were worth separating. So first up are these guys. These are the Apothecaries. So the Apothecaries, again, serve the same role as Space Marine Apothecaries. They are essentially a medic. You can tell that they are Apothecaries by the additions to their helmet, as well as the things on their back. Their helmet has like almost this little zoom lens, which I think is kind of cool, as well as having a wrist-mounted blade, and also what looks to be a little chainsaw as well. Really cool. Apothecaries serve as the medics in combat, so it's good to have a couple of them. And leading them, I have my Grey Knight Chaplain. So the Grey Knight Chaplain, again, serves the same purpose as a Space Marine Chaplain. They are the spiritual leader of the army. So like all the other chaplains, he serves as kind of a warrior priest kind of unit with the staff of a librarian and also a bolt pistol to be used in active combat. And as for the model itself, I actually think this might be the best looking model in the entire army. I had said in the Blood Angel video that the Blood Angel chaplain in Terminator armor was my favorite chaplain model, but I actually think the Grey Knight chaplain beats that one out. I just think this one looks so good. Like, there's so much detail on it, from the skulls on his chest to the little detail of the red eyes on his helmet and everything. Yeah, it's just really good. So yeah, that is the chaplain. So then for our second group, we have the Brother Captain units. Now this is just one example of the 3 of them, but the Brother Captains are some of the most skilled warriors in the entire Grey Knight Order. They also have these extremely well-designed spears, or especially the shafts of their spears in terms of design. So this guy has his spear, and on his wrist he almost has like a stake driver, which is really interesting. This guy here has the same, except he has a demon head attached to his arm as well, with a similar type of spear. You can see some of the decoration on the spear itself there. And then for our last guy, is just the same as we've seen before. But yeah, really cool. Let's move on. Okay, so now we are on to some of the larger units. So these are the Nemesis Dread Knights. So they are mechs that are piloted by a Grey Knight, and they wield colossal weapons, as well as a firearm. So each of them, let me actually just pick one up so you guys can see. Each of them is equipped with a heavy side cannon mounted on the mech's wrist. As you can see, there's the pilot. They also have these Nemesis Dread greatswords, or in this case, a great hammer, which they use, as well as having a Gatling on the other wrist. So these guys are great in both melee and in range. Some of the different variations have different combinations. So like I said, this guy has the great sword, this guy has the great hammer, this guy way back here has a what looks like a heavy melter on his wrist, and then I have this one, which is a little bit of a kit bash, where instead of the cannon, sorry, let me try and focus. Instead of the cannon being on his wrist, I put it on his shoulder instead, just to kind of make it look a bit cooler, as well as still having the greatsword itself. So yeah, these guys are very cool. I know a lot of people don't like this unit just based on how it looks, and I admit it does kind of look a little bit goofy. I've seen some people say that they look like baby carriers, and now I can't unsee it, which is really funny. So those are the Nemesis Dread Knights. They are really good, especially at taking out heavier enemy units like monster units or vehicles. So let's continue. So here we have our Dreadnoughts. Now the Grey Knight Dreadnoughts serve the same role and function as Space Marine Dreadnoughts, except I personally just think the color scheme of the grey and gold is super cool and goes extremely hard, and they have a wide variety of weapons that they can use. So this guy, for example, has a twin las cannon on one shoulder and on the other a power fist with a flamer underneath it. The guy next to him has a heavy gatling, if I can get this to actually focus, as well as another power fist. The power fist is a very powerful melee weapon, so they are both good at ranged and melee. What's also great about the Dreadnoughts is that you can change out their arms as needed, so you can essentially equip them with whatever weapons you would like them to have for a specific game. Now over here we have our Venerable Dreadnoughts. So this is one of them here. So unlike the standard Grey Knight Dreadnoughts, which just have the symbols of the Grey Knights on them, or the logos, or a sword decorating them, the Venerable Dreadnoughts have text inscribed onto them, which is really cool, and they also have these really nice gilded coffins on their front. So this one here I have equipped with a heavy plasma rifle, a multi-missile launcher, and then a grenade launcher on the top. And then this guy over here is an older version of a Venerable Dreadnought. I have him here with 2 twin cannons on either arm, and yeah, personally I'm not that big a fan of this model. I much prefer these Dreadnoughts, but still I think he looks cool in his own right. Anyway, let's continue. Alongside the Dreadnoughts, we also have our Grey Knight Tech Marine. So this is him here. As you can see, he has all kinds of things protruding from him. So let's just go one at a time. So he has a bolter in one hand with a mechanical claw coming out from his back. He has the axe that is used by the Tech Marines and the Mechanicus, as well as another claw coming out from him. So really cool. I love this model. He has a little thing down here as well, and yeah, he serves the same purpose as a Space Marine, Tech Marine, you know, providing assistance to vehicles and whatnot. I really love this unit. However, he was so much of a pain to paint. I mean, you can probably tell just by looking at him, but oh my god, this guy was my nightmare for days. He also has some wires running around through him, which you can see here. And yeah, so let's move on to our final unit. Also, this isn't the final unit, but for some reason I have my Calidus Assassin in my Grey Knight storage case. So I just thought that I might as well feature her here. I sometimes run her with my Grey Knights, but not usually. But again, I just thought that since I had taken her out and put her on the table, she might as well be included in the video. Anyway, let's get on to our final unit. So our final unit is a Land Raider Redeemer, and this is actually the Grey Knight variation of it. As you can see, it has some of the Grey Knight symbols on it. Very good vehicle, especially for an army that's mainly melee. Having one of these is really good. It has extremely powerful firepower. So first off, we have a Grey Knight on the top on a turret, which is a heavy bolter. Then we have a twin heavy bolter cannon on the front of the vehicle. And then on either side, we have a multi-melter. So, and there's one on this side, and we also have one on this side as well. And you can see that there's some purity seals here. There's the Grey Knight's symbol, a dagger through a book. And they actually put the book on the tank itself. And yeah, really good to have. So as well as having all of the firepower, the Land Raider is also capable of transporting 14 Grey Knights. So if you want to move some of your strong units up further towards the enemy, you can just pile them all in this thing and they will be a lot safer than if they were on foot. But yeah, that is the final unit of my Grey Knight army. So that is it for my Grey Knight Army showcase. I really hope that you enjoyed watching this video as much as I enjoyed making it. The Grey Knights were the first army I ever collected in Warhammer, and playing as them as a new player was a great starting off point in my opinion. They were powerful enough to, you know, have a lot of fun with without being too overpowered to feel like you are just winning based on your unit strength. So again, thank you so much for watching. My name has been Crimson, and I will see you guys in the next episode. Have a good evening.